Well, so maybe we'll do a modified LinkedIn introduction in that, we know that you're Alexis. What would we not know if, a fun fact about you, if we read your LinkedIn profile that would not be on there?
So I have probably the biggest crush ever on Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase?
Yeah, and I actually knew that I loved my boyfriend when I looked at him, and I realized I'd found my Clark Griswold, so. Yeah. Definitely not on my LinkedIn profile.
Was there a certain Chevy Chase movie that really did it for you? Or?
I'm a big fan of Christmas Vacation. It's oldie but goodie, yeah.
Christmas Vacation,
yeah.
All right. And if we were to have you do a special talent, what would that look like?
So I think my special talent is if you put me in a kitchen with nothing that makes sense for dinner, I can come up with a really, really great meal. And I discovered that talent when I went to a 10-day Vipassana, and they were super strict on food. I mean, you get 2 meals a day, and then at dinner you get fruit. And you should have seen the dinners I came up with a banana and some condiments. It was great, so.
The ketchup banana?
I did, it was flax seeds and some cinnamon. It was great. I would never do it again, but yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So you led Mindfulness in New York with a bunch of sales guys, right? How did you start that? How did you start that conversation with your team at work? How did that go?
So if you ask them, they'll probably say that I made them because I was their boss. But I think really it came down to I had taken over a business that had seen some significant challenges. In the financial market, those customers were last to move to the cloud. So overnight, I lost 48% of my business. And that means we had turnover on the team, people weren't making money. I mean, it was very stressful. And we had to figure out another way. And I had been practicing mindfulness, meditation, a lot of spiritual work outside of my day job for 15 plus years, and realized, this had helped me become very successful and weather the recession and different things that had been quite challenging. Why don't I bring this into the workplace? So, just made it very factual, right? Had the research together, had the benefits together, and also had references of other companies that were instituting mindfulness and what was happening there, and just said, let's try it, let's just see. And it turned out that, after one session, I think we can all agree, it feels good, right? It innately feels good. We almost don't need the research after that. And so that's kind of how it started. It was just, Mondays we had 15-minute lunch breaks to actual formalized program that Cisco developed called Mindset Program, which was a 5-week program through Potential Project.
Wow. And maybe back up a little bit. How did it start for you? When did you become interested in mindfulness?
So I think it started, I wanted to help people and I wanted to feel good, and I'd started with Pilates and just kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, I love Pilates, and I think if I become an instructor, I can help other people, and became an instructor, and then quickly realized, oh, wait, maybe it's more with diet. That's what helps people. And so I went and got a nutrition certification, holistic health coaching, and then from there I realized, actually, no, that's not it at all. It's all inside us. We all have the answer. We know how to fix all of this. And so deepening my practice with meditation and actually getting certified within mindfulness was kind of the natural progression.
Yeah. And so when you first started, what did that look like? What was your first thing you did at the company? Because I know a lot of people, they say, hey, I have this thing and I'd like to start, I just don't know how. How did you make that first step?
Yeah, so I think for, this is the New Leader Conference, there were, like I said, those Mondays with the 15-minute come and do a little meditation session with me, but it was also being a leader and leading through example. So, actually at the start of meetings, taking a mindful minute, a break, in longer meetings, instituting performance breaks, not having my cell phone out when I was having one-on-ones with people, making sure that my employees felt like I was truly there and listening to them. As Jeff said, being compassionate, starting minutes 5 minutes late, 5 minutes late and wrapping them up 5 minutes early so people can transition. Just being mindful on a day-to-day basis and doing it throughout, tactical, that was really, I think, between the two of those, what made a big difference.
And how did the team respond to it? You know, I guess were there skeptics? Were there people who were all in from the beginning?
Yeah, they're definitely the skeptics. And you know, there was one person on my team who said, look, this causes me a lot of anxiety. I need to step out when you do this. So completely understand individuals who it might not work for. And it was going through those hurdles, right, learning. It was, you know, if you can imagine, I'm the leader of an organization of like some really big New York tough guys, and I'm like, hey, we're all gonna be quiet and sing Kumbaya together for a little bit. There was definitely some skeptics there, but again, putting them through the 15-minute practice or a 10-minute practice afterwards, the way that they felt was so different. And I shared this story with you. I had one of my guys who was probably the one I was most worried about embracing it. And I remember one day him coming into work and going, I was about to drive myself off the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I remembered your little breathing thing and the tricks, and I pulled over and I did it, and it changed the rest of my day. And it was like, all right. So maybe he's not, you know, downloading Headspace and listening to it every day, or going to yoga classes or anything, but they're embracing this on a day-to-day basis. And we saw that through the performance. The team was at 67% of plan. By the time I left, we were at 94%, had gone from 80% turnover to none. The people have stayed there since I've left. And most of the folks on the team have actually been recognized at an operational level. So those things that we instituted are working, and it was really built to last. So I didn't have to be there, which I think is nice to see.
That's great.
Yep.
And so you started with yourself, you started with your team, and then it kind of grew through there, right? So tell me about how that kind of grew organically.
Yeah. So people had heard about what I was doing within the business and that it was working, and was asked to do some case studies, and then was asked to speak at our global sales meeting. And for anyone out there who wants to start a program or is interested in it, this is kind of like a little inspirational story. So they said, hey, come and speak at our global sales meeting, which is about 40,000 people in Las Vegas, and we're going to put you on the big stage. You know, you can do this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is my big shot. And before I know it, actually, I think we're going to put you on one of the kind of the speaker rooms. It's still about 3,000 people. I thought, okay. And then a week before, I heard, actually, this is too woo-woo for our company. So we're going to put you kind of in the break room where the coffee and the other vendors are, and people can just come and see you when they're interested. And so I was like, all right, well, we'll do that. And so pep myself up that morning, and lo and behold, the theater that they put me in, I mean, it was a small area, it was completely packed. And there was no sitting or standing room, and it was amazing. And afterwards, there was just a huge line of leaders and individual contributors going, that felt so good. I came here because I was curious what this was all about, and it works. It really does feel different after I take a minute to just settle with myself. So from there, got an email about a week later where after you go to the sessions, people vote and provide feedback. It was actually the #1 attended session and the highest ranked. And so the message from our SVP was the people have spoken. And so from there, I went and presented in front of the entire company on an all-hands call, which was one of the coolest experiences to see worldwide company with just video panning from country to country of people meditating together. So very powerful. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about your own personal journey, right? So when you think of yourself when you're first starting out to, maybe before you had a practice, to now and having gone through that, what has your own transformation been like? What has it meant to you?
So many things. I think for me especially, getting more in tune with myself, it made me realize that the title, the money, a lot of things that you get attached to from an ego standpoint, being a leader, really don't make you happy. And they aren't things that you really want to be attached to. So for me, it was actually stepping away from my career in December. I said, look, I've done what I needed to do. I've been here 12 years, and I've lived my number by committing a number 4 times a week, right? I've been literally living by a number, and I'm ready to do something else with my life, and I don't know what that is, and that's very scary, but having the practice and being able to kind of sink into myself and know that this was the right step for me, yeah, it's been life-changing. And since then, I've traveled the world. I've been part of so many cool projects. I'm writing a book. My life has literally changed for the better. And who knows, maybe I'll end up back in a role like that again, having had this experience, and maybe I won't. We'll see.
Yeah. So if you were to start at another company from kind of the inside, I call it the Trojan horse, right? Because you're a successful business person and you have this practice, so you're playing both worlds. What would you do? If you went to company X that didn't have anything going on, like how would you navigate knowing what you know now?
Yeah. I mean, I would first start by assessing the culture. Every organization is different, so I don't think I can give like that cure-all magic pill. But assessing the culture and understanding how people work and what the challenge is there, what the goals of the business are, because it's got to be relevant to the business and it's got to align with your organization's goals. Because I truly feel like mindfulness isn't a people or results, it brings both together. It's environment and results, it's everything and results. So assessing the culture, figure out the goals, and then just start doing it. And for people that feel maybe they aren't mindful meditators, then they don't have to do it. This is something people can opt into. But I mean, the research is there. I think at this point we pick up any newspaper, any magazine. Mindfulness is like the word. So I think that if you want to institute this in your organization, now is really the time.
Cool. And for people who haven't maybe read some of those things, what would be the words you'd describe to a leader on why this makes sense? Like, why do this at work?
For me and my team, obviously I ran a sales team. Time is money, and we spend on average almost 47% of our day with our minds wandering. 50% of our employees' days, they're not productive. And if we can give them a tool to just increase that by 10%, that makes sense for the business. It also makes sense just from a fulfillment standpoint. We know mindfulness allows us to get better in touch with ourselves. We want to make sure that the right people are in the right positions. And I think that this is a tool that helps them figure that out. So yeah, you've got the number from a productivity standpoint, but also fulfillment.
Beautiful. What else would you like to share?
Do we want Q&A?
We could do some Q&A. This could be interactive. Who has a question for Alexis? We'll figure out where the mics are. How about up here? I'll repeat your question.
Yes, so you're a meditator, and here you talk about mindfulness. How do you see the difference?
Yes, so you're a meditator and you're talking about mindfulness. What do you see as the difference between the two?
Yep. So I see mindfulness as being like a subcomponent of meditation. So mindfulness is really just having and cultivating focused awareness of ourselves, what's going on internally, or single-pointed concentration. Whatever you want to look at the different types of mindfulness, it basically just comes down to that focused awareness. Anybody else has a good answer for it?
Very good.
Hi. I was wondering, this is Ebony from Salesforce.org. I really love the mindful minute, starting your meetings.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that or take us through what that looks like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. That's a great question.
You want to just do it? We were going to end with that, but let's do it now.
I'm sorry. You can.
No.
Yeah, no, let's
do it now.
Let's do it now. Okay, so let's start with our feet flat on the floor. And this is as a leader, and I don't mean leader as in you have to have the title. This could be, this is your meeting, or you're just someone who wants to create more productivity or space for everyone else in the meeting. You can hold these. So feet flat on the floor, keeping shoulders down away from the ears, flat back. Inhale, exhale, closing the eyes. So we're going to start with some breaths, then we're going to go into some concentration, and then back into some breathing. So inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. So just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Keep going. As you do this, releasing the tongue away from the top teeth. Let that jaw relax. Just focusing on bringing in as much breath into the belly as you can. And now letting the breath just easily come in and out of the body, might be shorter breaths. I want you to focus just on the nostrils and that sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. Maybe sense the temperature, what it feels like contacting the skin. And then again, coming back to the breaths, we're going to inhale fully into the belly for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last inhale. And exhale, opening the eyes and returning to the room. So I like to do that with my sales team because most of the time their minds are going crazy and they forget to be in their body. So starting with the breath and wrapping up with the breath seems to help ground and center everyone.
All right, if Alexis can do that with high-power New Jersey sales guys, the rest of us don't have any excuse. Other questions? Yeah, Mike's coming. 1 second.
So in the room, there were things about, like the word mindfulness might not fly well in such and such a town or whatever, and you had this success story of standing room only. So I was curious if there's any more specifics of like, what was the title of what they thought they were coming to, or anything else that might be helpful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at Cisco, we called our program Mindset, and that was developed because they put together a focus group around it. So I think, again, you've got to assess your organization and figure out what works and doesn't. I referred to it as mindfulness, though, and I spoke freely about meditation and energy with my team. I didn't hide from it, and that was because it just felt authentic to me. If it doesn't feel authentic to you, don't do it, because it won't come across that way. Other organizations use resilience as a really good word, meaning almost the same thing in kind of these high performance environments. So resilience seems to be landing very well.
That's a good one. There's one in the very back. You're getting your exercise. Next, we'll have one in the very front over here.
Thank you. So you described how people, start meditating and mindfulness, and then you went to the results of like sales number driving, growing. But then, can you describe a little more for the things that happen in between, like behavioral changes, patterns, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the big one was, again, people coming to meetings and not having technology out, which allowed us to have, the meetings were so much more productive. Productive in a way that people felt listened and heard the time in the meeting. So every Monday in a sales culture, we would have a commit meeting. And that's where we would go around the room and everyone would have to say how much they were going to bring in for the week, month, quarter. And these are typically pretty stressful meetings. And I have to basically decide who's lying and not. So during these meetings, they can drag out pretty long, and we were able to cut them in half. And so it was, putting the technology away. It was also when they were in the meetings after our mindful minute, reassessing what's the goal of the meeting. And if you're not here or you shouldn't be here, you should leave. You have permission to exit. And just having the right people in the room and not wanting to go through that made people think a little bit more before their meetings on who they were inviting. Same thing with CCing on emails. I saw the email traffic went down a ton on the team because people were just more thoughtful about what they were doing on a day-to-day basis. Another thing was around ramping up employees. As I said, I had a lot of turnover. When they initially started, they went through this mindfulness program as well as, I had kind of instituted my mindful leadership program. And they were able to ramp up so much faster because when we had time together, we were 100% present and focused with each other. I also attribute it to the fact that I was more mindful during the hiring and interview process than I had been before. So I had changed too. People were a lot kinder to each other on the team. One of the folks went out on maternity leave, and you should have seen how excited everyone was to actually celebrate that as a culture. That wasn't something that people normally did, right? They don't, in our sales environment, you weren't excited to host a baby shower for your coworker and like take a morning to do that. And they were doing just really kind and thoughtful things as coworkers, as a community. So, did that answer your question? Okay.
Beautiful. There's one over there in the back.
Hi.
Hi.
I manage a remote sales team, so sales, high performance. How do you think the best way to implement that for people that are all over the country?
Yeah. So that's with our mindset program I was doing over WebEx, different sessions with people. You can host mindfulness sessions together, but I think it's also, if you're the leader, kind of having a set of standards that you want to say, hey, as a team, we're all going to do this. And that might be when we're on calls together, we're not multitasking. Or after going through the mindset program or whatever it is that you have or whatever tool you put together or can do, letting people know that when they are focused on tasks, that they're not to be interrupted, and that should be kind of part of the culture here, that like if someone has up on their instant message or whatever, that they're busy, to not keep texting, emailing, whatever, like let them have that space.
Thank you.
That's great. Up here? Last one.
Hey, I'm Danny. I've been doing tech sales for about 12 years myself. And so you talked about how you saw mindfulness manifested internally among the team, but kind of regarding the change in quota attainment from 67 to 90% of plan, I was curious of how you actually saw, witnessed, or had reported how people were different actually when selling, maybe more calm during negotiations, better listeners, things to that effect, and how that improved.
Yeah, I think, like I said, with the reduced turnover, creating a culture that people wanted to be a part of and they were engaged in, that helps when you don't have headcount that's open. You've got people who are reducing their sales cycle because they're taking the time to block out on their calendar, like, I need to research my customer before I go into this meeting. I saw a lot of reduced sales cycle, and that's same with the new people that started. It takes about 18 months, I would say, for them to hit plan for the first time. They were doing it in 6 months. And again, I think it's part of that culture of like, take the time, slow down to speed up. Another thing was just as a leader, kind of questioning them too on anytime I'd get, hey, this situation happened, the first response is, well, what do you think? Like making people pause and actually go, well, what do I think? Or how did you feel in that meeting? Like, did something happen in there that was a little weird or that you might not have realized at the time? And like go back and think about that. And the next time you're in a meeting, you're probably going to be a little bit more conscious of what's happening or being said that isn't actually spoken. Another thing is just, as a leader, being able to have the foresight or the strength to also protect your people, right? Because I'm getting beaten up from above that's saying we need results, this month, this quarter, but being able to say to your people, hey, let's not get so concerned about that weekly, monthly number. Let's start looking at long term, and when you do that, you create almost this funnel for yourself that you've got bigger deals, you've got better projects, better results for your customers that are constantly happening, rather than that grind of every week just trying to pull something out.
Awesome. Well, we are at time. Thank you so much for your work and showing us that mindfulness can not only drive better people, but high performance.
Thank you, and thank you for staying here this long.